These are the best rares that you want to open this weekend at the Spider-Man pre-release and build your deck around. And stay to the end of the video because I also talk about some of the rares that seem good but are actually traps and will make you lose more games. And by the way, because pre-release is coming out this weekend, I'm only going to be talking about the Spider-Man paper cards, and then I'll have another video coming out soon which will talk about the Into the Omen Path version, which is going to be on Arena. And also those are going to be focused on draft, and sometimes the power level of the cards will change based on sealed or draft. So first is Dr. Octopus Master Planner. I'm not going to read all the cards because you can see them up on the screen here, but the reason why it's so good is because it's in the color pairs focus, which is going to be around the creature type of villains, and because it lets you refill your hand and draw up to 8 cards. Now, keep in mind, the draw ability is not optional, so make sure you do not deck yourself. Next is the Clone Saga, and actually almost all of the sagas in all of the colors are really good, except for the white one. The white one's just okay, but the blue one here lets you basically double your creature spell on your second turn, and you can surveil before that to ensure that you actually do draw a creature. And keep in mind, they have to counter both copies of the spell, so even if they have a counter spell, they'll only get to counter one of your creatures, and then you get to draw a card with those creatures if they do damage the following turn, which hopefully they will, because you're going to be copying your best creature. So I'm always a big fan of value cards, and that's an easy 2-for-1. Next is Mysterio, Master of Illusion. This one just makes you a lot of creatures that you can either sacrifice, use for chump blocking, or use for double blocking. So it's just really hard to get around the pure value that you get from this card. Next is Agent Venom, which has an ability that lets you draw cards whenever one of your non-token creatures die, which is one of the most busted effects in all of Limited. It's very similar to Morbid Opportunist, which came out a few sets ago, and that card was literally the best card in the whole set, even though it was just an uncommon. So at least this time they made it a rare, so it'll be a little bit harder to get to. Next is Behold the Sinister Six, which is basically a recursion sorcery spell that lets you bring back 6 creatures, up to 6 creatures from your graveyard, and you do not need to have 6, you can have up to 6, which is why this card is so good, and it's in black, so feel free to chump block early or make weird double blocks, and you can just know that you're going to get your creatures back. Next is Black Cat Cunning Thief. This one basically lets you draw 2 cards, the best 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck, and keep in mind, even if they kill Black Cat Cunning Thief, you can still play the cards, which is why this card is so busted, and it's only a rare. Next is the Soul Stone. This is obviously the big money card of the set, so if you get this weekend, congratulations, you definitely made some money, but it's also a really good win condition. Number 1, it's a mana rock, and it's indestructible, so they won't be able to kill it, and it only costs 2. Like a 2 mana rock is the best form that you can get, and it has an ability that helps you win the game. So when you have 7 mana, exile a creature, and then you get to recur a creature from your graveyard every single upkeep. Next is Villainous Wrath. Now this is one of the only board wipes in the set, and there's one more board wipe in black, and it's an uncommon, but it only does -2/-2. So this is the only board wipe in the whole set, which means number 1, you're going to catch your opponents off guard with this because, again, it's the only board wipe, so they're not going to play around it. And normally board wipes aren't that good because you'll wipe the field and then your opponent will get to play their creatures or play their spells after you. So this one has a upside for you. Well, your opponent will lose life equal to the number of creatures that they control. So if they are really going wide and playing aggro, they're probably going to take maybe 4 or 5, maybe even 6 damage, which offsets the downside of a board wrath. Next is the Green Saga, Kraven's Last Hunt. Now, obviously, every part of this just gives you so much value. You get to pump some stuff, you get to deal damage and kill something, and you get to return a card. And I always love value cards, as I mentioned, so this is an easy 2-for-1, maybe even 3-for-1. Then there's Lizard Conrad's Curse. This is just an overstated creature that buffs another creature. 4 mana, 5/5 with trample, and it can make one of your other tiny creatures into a 4/4, which is just absolutely crazy. If you curve out with this, you go 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, your opponent could potentially take 9 on that turn. Now, this is one of the only double-faced triple color cards that I think is actually busted and one of the best rares, only because the front side of it, Miles Morales, is just good on its own as a green 2 mana 1/2 because it puts 2 +1/+1 counters on each of up to 2 other creatures, including itself. And then, of course, it has the upside where if you are in green, you most likely get to have easy splashes. So you can also play the backside. So Number one, it's just good in your green deck. So even if you're not playing green-white or green-red, you should still just play this card overall because it's just a good rate. And then, of course, if you can transform it, it's even better. Next is Sandman's Shifting Scoundrel. Now, this card is just busted because it's a recurring threat that keeps coming back from your graveyard, and it gets bigger every single time, and it can't be chump blocked by creatures power 2 or less. Now, I do have a note here. Keep in mind, you do need to have a land in your graveyard in order to return it back to the battlefield. So you're going to want to find ways to mill or discard lands into the graveyard so you can keep recurring this over and over again. And then I do have Web Life of Destiny. Now, I know it costs 8 mana, but you can convoke it, which means it's definitely never going to cost 8 mana. And then when you convoke it that turn, you already get to put a creature card from the top of your top 5 onto the battlefield. So normally expensive cards like this make you wait one whole turn to get any value, but you don't have to this time. You can cheat it out with convoke, and then you can even get your value right away and play a creature from the top. Now, you're going to be in green, obviously, so you can ramp to this, and you're going to be in green, so which means you're going to have big creatures, which is going to be perfect for you to get every single turn. Next is Silk Web Weaver, and I also want to highlight Bio-Organic Carapace. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, you'll notice these are the only 2 double colored cards that are on my list here because these are actually in the supported color pairs of the set. This set only supports allied color pairs, which are, and these are 2 allied color pairs. So that's why these are in my top list for best rares, because you'll actually be able to play that and it synergizes with the theme of that deck. Now, Silk Web Weaver is really good because every time you play a spell, you get an additional 1/1 creature, and then you can pump your whole board for 5 mana. And it's an overstated creature for its size. It's a 4 mana 3/5. And then there's the Bio-Organic Carapace, and this isn't a 4 mana equipment, which is normally not that good, but it equips for free, and it gives +2/+2 whenever the creature does damage. They draw a card for each modified creature that you control. And that's the whole theme in blue-white, is modifying your creatures. We're putting counters on stuff or equipping them. And so this is going to make every creature into a threat that they must block. Otherwise, you'll get to draw 1 or maybe 2 cards. Now, I want to talk about some of the rares that I think aren't as good, but are still good depending on what your sealed pool looks like or how good your fixing is. So first is Norman Osborn, which is one of those transform cards. The front side is actually pretty decent, but it's still just a 2 mana 1/1 that can't be blocked. And then if it does combat damage, you get to connive. Now, keep in mind, connive is one of the best mechanics in this set in terms of value. So even though you may not get to transform it, it's still a pretty decent card. But again, it's a terrible top deck. And also the backside is a lot of work for you not to get that much value. You can cast cards from your graveyard for 2 less, but you would need to be able to trigger the mayhem, which means you need to have cards that discard other cards in order for it to be triggered. So that's why it's on my tier 2 list. Next is Eddie Brock. Now, the backside of this card is really busted, but again, it's not one of the supported color pairs in this set other than green-red, so you'd have to splash for this, and I don't know if you're going to get the mana appropriately, whether you're drafting or doing this in sealed, which is why it's in my tier 2. And the front side of Eddie Brock is not that great, to be honest. It's the backside where you get all the value, but it's really hard to cast. Now, if you look at other content creators, they've actually put these 2 rares in their top 10 like bombs or top 10 list, which is Arana, Heart of the Spider, and The Spot, Living Portal. Now, don't get me wrong, both of these cards, super busted. The only reason why they're in my tier 2 list is because these are not in the allied color pairs, so these are not in the supported color pairs of the set. So there is no red-white archetype, and there is no black-white archetype, which means you will be having to splash these cards in some form of white deck, which is why, again, this is in my tier 2. But both of these cards are really good. Oh, and with Spot the Living Portal, make sure you do exile one of your own non-land permanents from your graveyard to get the maximum value from this. That way, even if they kill the Spot, they'll get their creature back, but it'll go back to their hand, which means they need to cast it again. And then you also get to put a card back in your hand. So it's basically a 2-for-1. Next is Iron Spider Stark Upgrade. Now, the only reason why it's in tier 2 is because it starts off understated. It's a 3 mana 2/3. Now, you do get to put a counter on it every single turn for free by just tapping it, and then you can remove 2 counters to draw a card. But it is a really slow value engine, and it is understated, which is why it's in tier 2. And then I have Mary Jane Watson, which is a really cool build around, and there are a lot of spiders in green and white. That's kind of like their sub-theme, but it still requires a bit of a build around, and in sealed it may be pretty difficult to actually get enough spiders, but I think in draft this is going to be one of the best rares that you can get because you get to draw a card basically every turn. Okay, so now I want to talk about some of the rares or mythics that seem good, but are actually traps. And this is the first one. This is Peter Parker. Now, I know it's one of those mythics that comes in 3 colors, so you may automatically think it's worth splashing because it's really good. Now, the front side is just okay, right? It's a 2 mana 0/1 that makes a 2/1 spider with reach, which is fine, but it's not that amazing. And then the backside is a 4 mana 4/4 vigilance reach, and it gives all of your legendary spells. And by the way, there's a ton of legendary spells in common, uncommon, and rare in this set. So you would think that'd be good, but keep in mind, you have to have Bant color available just to be able to do the web slinging ability on those cards, which is going to make it really difficult because you're going to have to splash this because this is not a set that's built around 3 colors, which is why I have this kind of as a trap card. The payoff is just not worth all the hoops you have to go through just to get this 3rd color in your deck. The next is Rent is Due. Now, you may think it's awesome because you get to draw a card, but keep in mind, if you don't meet this requirement, you have to sack this at the end of your turn. So definitely going to be really difficult to build around in sealed. Maybe fun to try and draft, but definitely a trap card. The next one is Imposter Syndrome. So the reason why you think that it's good to make copies of your creatures, right? That's always pretty busted. But this one is so difficult. Number one, it costs 6 mana. Then you have to have a creature that's good enough to do combat damage on its own already. So if you already had a creature that was good enough to hit somebody, then you don't really need to take your 6th turn off just to play this because you already were in a winning position. So it's like a win more card. I don't think it's worth building around, but it would be pretty fun. Now, these next 2 trap cards are ones that are going to make you think that you should lean into the Mayhem ability. So the first one is Ultimate Green Goblin, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card, then create a treasure token. So this is supposed to be your repeatable free way of triggering Mayhem. Keep in mind, the reason why it's in my trap card, it's not optional. You must discard a card every single turn while this is on the battlefield. So at some point, you will run out of the Mayhem cards, and then you'll have to discard real cards. So yes, it is a 3 mana 5/4, so maybe your opponent can block with it or something, but you're going to have to discard a card every single turn. So you may 2 for 1 yourself. And then there is Spider-Verse, which also basically has the same thing. It's relying on you to cast cards using Mayhem, and then you can copy that ability. But it's really not worth it to take your turn 5 off, and then the next turn you have to find a card that can allow you to discard, and then on top of that, you also have to have a card that has Mayhem in your hand. So there's just too many hoops to jump through, and there's too many requirements to make this card even playable. Next is Gwen Stacy, which is another one of those transform cards. I didn't put the backside on it because basically it's not very good. It would be fun, and it's probably worth money in paper, but this is just a trap card. Trust me, don't do it. And then there's Gwenum Remorselessness. And this card seems cool because it's basically a creature version of Bolas's Citadel, where it has to attack first in order for you to even have that ability. And keep in mind, you're paying 5 mana for a 4/4. Sure, it's got Death Touch and Lifelink, but it's an understated creature, so it fails the vanilla test. And you have to wait 1 whole turn cycle before you can even attack with it. And then they're most likely going to kill it, either double block or something. Sure, you get to kill their creatures. And then for that 1 turn, you can use the ability that Bolas Citadel has and play cards at the top of your library. But again, if it's turn 5 and you took too much damage already, you may not get to play too many cards because you'll kill yourself, or you hit 2 lands and then you can't do anything after that. So I don't think it's really worth it. It's a fine card, but I wouldn't say it's something that you need to pivot into black for or force into your deck as one of those bombs. Alright, so those are my top picks for the best rares, the tier 2 rares, and the trap rares that you should avoid playing this weekend. And I hope you all have really awesome pulls, and put down in the comments what you ended up opening this weekend, if you got anything cool. Maybe you even got the Soul Stone. That would be awesome. Put a comment down because people are wondering if anyone else has opened it so far. And let us know what other comments or what other content you want me to create, and what would be helpful for you to succeed in this limited format for Spider-Man.